The ghosts and devils of the underworld haunt the edge of town, with sly manners and dressed in style, with the substance of death smeared on their fingertips. Just as the child's fear of monsters under the bed, the foul phantoms lurk just beyond the bedroom windows of those houses on the outskirts, where coyotes and ravens patrol. Beyond the edge of the city, the shallow buried bodies craft ghoulish games with their bones just a few feet under the sand and soil. That is, unless the killer was in a rush. A body pushed out from a fast moving car, rolled in the dust by the side of the road, picked at, plucked dry, the bones since scattered by scavengers. The shallow grave is a convenience for death, fast food for the underworld. Stray animals and insects don't have to work so hard for their morsels, exhausting themselves digging too deep to fend off ravens and hawks. In time, the desert makes friends with the bones, blood pacts for revenge, shallow reminders that not every crime can be hidden forever. It wasn't all that unusual to look across the city in the dead of night and see a pair of headlights bounce along the outskirts, to hover just long enough under a cloud of dust for two men to grab some shovels and bury the evidence of some soon-to-be-forgotten crime. These shallow graves were seen from the tallest building at the center of the city, the bell tower of the Run City Courthouse. The courthouse stood out from all the surrounding structures, the heavy stone and brick walls crude as a Bronze Age fortification, ultimately bland, with thick square windows in the fashion of a factory or prison. The imposing facade and tall tower dominated over the center of the city, wide glass and steel front doors, culminating at the span of stone steps that reached to the edge of the street. The courthouse was built as an intimation of the rural American church, lacking a cross above the steeple. The structure stood in worship to the religion of man, power, as opposed to any faith in God. The laws of man, as well as the laws of God, were outmoded and old-fashioned. The fine fibers of humanity that bind civilization together were better off torn and shredded at the behest of blind authority, for the sake of blind authority, the rebirth of the sovereign, the rise of the postmodern monarch, and the New Age city-state. Some laws were observed, at the leisure of the lawbreakers, for the sake of expediency, for the sake of entertainment. From the street, it was just a courthouse. Beyond their daily routine, the Run City locals were aware that any association with the courthouse was to be sucked into a living shallow grave of their own. They knew better to live lives without involvement from the courthouse, legal or otherwise, what would lead inevitably to the shallow graves just outside the city. There were other cities. There were other states. The comfort of routine was greater than the discomfort of relocating, greater than the fear of the underlying powers that drove the city. Run City sprawled at the foot of this courthouse. Run City was said to be the devil's summer home, where cheap houses intermingled with heaps and mounds of dirt placed along the highway heading south. Run City was placed on the map as a dot on a highway, worthy of being ignored. Edward's tattoo shop stood at the start of that southern highway, on the very edge of that dot.